thinker back then, except for, the artistic type of thinking and creating as well. But I was not a mystic at all. I know that you're an authentic mystic of our times. I can feel it. I can see it. But I didn't feel that way at all back then. And suddenly these angels say, we're going to be talking to you and we're going to be conveying all these messages and we're going to be speaking through you and you're going to talk a lot about angels. And I said, no, I'm not. I said no, period. And well, let's say they won or they were right in the end. But it took me 5 years to actually come to terms with the fact that I was perceiving so much more than I would have ever looked for or wanted. And people kept coming for counsel and I just couldn't stop it. I had a little issue with learning to say no. So this is one of the reasons I think that I was chosen, quote unquote, to do this, because I didn't want to do it, but I didn't know how to say no to people after I started conveying those messages. Anyway, why would I choose?
Which is very important. Which is important. Just to
sure.
emphasize that that's such an important thing that you didn't know how to say no. I think that's a journey of most of humanity, right? So, but please keep going, because I know you have a special message for everyone today and everything. And by the way, everyone, if you wish to know a little bit more about the story of Alex, he's truly one of the most extraordinary. I think he truly is the best. I'm known the best in the world of archangels and everything, but the best. He was truly the best on his field. So we'll make sure our team and I that we put the link of the other podcast in the copy of this podcast. Just remember that one is in English and Spanish, so it will take a little longer. But you will hear more about the message that Alex gave, and also about the archangels. So carry on, love.
Sure. So, not to make a long story short, right around the time that I started perceiving these energies, I was also fascinated already by the oracles. And I was learning in college about literature. That was my major. And I wanted to write a thesis on how an oracle can be a symbolic way to interpret an entire culture, their hierarchical system, their, let's call it their objects of power, what they value, how they organize, etc. And so I had around, after about 5 years collecting oracles, I could maybe have over 200 different oracles that I was studying. And I was actually reading the cards right around that time. And I was very open to that. I did realize that I was good at it, but I never expected the angels to come and say, okay, we're going to convey messages to you and through you. And so let's fast forward 25 years later. I produced a lot of material regarding their messages. I used to channel, as you remember, an entity called Akshmil, which presented himself as a double-dimensional from another star system, Sirius. And so there were all these messages. And so the question goes back to why tarot would be a tool for 2020, which is exactly when I stopped channeling angels. For the time being, I needed to take a sabbatic, a big break. And I chose tarot, and the angels themselves said, this is the tool, because now it's about you as humans listening more to your own selves than listening to an entity outside of yourselves. And I was very surprised to which degree they agreed that I started teaching tarot and doing more sessions. I've been very blessed because it's been nonstop, when I was very afraid to change a little my direction and just focus on the tarot, because there's, as you well mentioned, there may be a little prejudice concerning tarot cards as, fortune telling, or using it as a means to sometimes even scare people with their own future. Whereas the way that I'm using it is just a means to connect with our own soul and have a conversation with our own soul.
I love that. I love that, because, people should be aware, I think that your invitation and the way you have always teach, and I think it's an important reminder for everyone, it's based on being sovereign in your soul, right? This is sovereign futures, and being able to follow your heart. And anything that sells you into fear, that if we buy into that, what is buying? It's not, obviously it's not your soul, obviously it's not your heart, obviously there must be a thought there that you have to get rid of, because you have to be very mindful and careful who you choose as a mentor, who you choose as your tarot expert, as your channeler, as your leader, as whatever it is. You have to be very mindful and keep the integrity of your soul intact. And that's something that I've seen and witnessed, Alex, for more than 20 years. I can't believe that we can say that now, honey. It used to be for more than 2
That's
years,
beautiful.
more than 5 years, right? But yeah, so that was an important thing to highlight.
Oh, well, it's beautiful, honey. And thank you for that, because, endeavoring a hero's journey with that tarot, because I want to tell you something that I also wanted to mention and contribute. During these times of channeling in the past, I also received, without knowing about the hero's journey, I had never read about hero's journey, and yet here are these angels and masters giving me information regarding what they called life as an initiation. And they gave me 4 different levels of initiation, from the unconscious initiation, which is very similar to what happened with COVID last year. Like, it was very shocking for many people. It's been very traumatic, honestly. There's been a lot of loss, a lot of pain, a lot of grief, but it wakens your senses and shakes you up. It really, really awakens you. And there was a graphic. So I was so impressed when I saw your first rendering of the hero's journey in the work we did in Missions in Action. And it was so similar to what I received through channeling. The way that you go, you descend to, let's call it the fires of hell, or the dark night of the soul. And then you have to gather resources to be rebirthed from there to a higher state of being and understanding the meaning of your own life. And you get that in the tarot as well. You get that in the tarot. It explains exactly how a soul can move from the beginning of a journey and the innocence of the journey, right, to deep transformation, to deep detox, facing your fears, facing the darker side of your own energy, and being able to thrive and move to the side of light when you're ready, when you have polished and renewed and detoxed and grieved and understood, until you have all the tools you need to experience a wonderful journey ahead.
Yeah, so this the whole of humanity and the whole of its rites of passages and experience has been a huge collective heroic journey, definitely now. So, honey, so the name of the podcast, we named it The Role of Humanity in This Time of Ascension. And I know that you are doing a reading of tarot for this. What is the role of humanity in your, in your field of expertise, in your field of the tarot? What is the role of humanity in this time of ascension? Please share with us.
Of course. So I actually drew 7 cards for this, because I was asked by my own intuition and my soul to draw these 7 cards in a reading that I called, this is a personal reading that I call Agreement with Your Soul. But this is the collective soul that we are speaking of, because I asked for the collective soul and not for myself. And one of the things that surfaced here is that, well, the first thing we need to be is responsible for the way we expand and we share our energy. So there's a few cards to the left. There's a column, 3 cards at the left, 3 cards at the right. The ones at the left speak about who we are as personality and ego. And the ego is very eager to ask for justice. It's holding the sword high, and there's this white dragon. It's flying recklessly in the middle of these mountains that are like these rocks that are very near each other. It's like there's not a lot of width between them. And what this says is that we are being reckless drivers of the ego. And this is not going to help our ascension if you are just looking for truth and justice and let's fight with everybody and let's defend a single point of view. This is the Knight of Swords. And Knight of Swords is all about seeking justice, truth, and a very keen mind, very acute mind. and wanting to have our say and saying things as they are, and we are truth sayers and naysayers. And what is being asked of us from the soul is exactly the opposite. The opposite, our soul, the column to the right, instead of this, what our soul wants for us is to assimilate our vulnerability. It's the Page of Cups, so it's very tender, very open-hearted, super compassionate, assimilating the energy of how we feel truly, as opposed to how we think and what we do. We're supposed to be feeling at this point. And what we feel, or supposed to be feeling for ascension, is more empathy, more coordination between our hearts, more compassion amongst each other. Less what I think, what you think, what I believe, what you believe. Who cares what we believe? How do we feel about each other and with each other? Let's open, the doors of that tenderness and
empathy, right?
Empathy, yes. It's a little girl, and she is actually in the image. We have a water dragon handing her a piece of parchment that has a beautiful grail in it, and the grail symbolizes the quest for happiness and love. It has very little to do at this point with trying to convey the truth to everyone, although I know truth is a very important piece of the puzzle of 2021, but it's not the only one, and we're being reckless regarding information. We're just sharing information like crazy. And
that's so important. We are being reckless. So reckless.
Yes.
Absolutely, I agree.
And sometimes that recklessness can lead us to defend our point of view so strongly that whoever opposes that point of view can become an enemy or somebody that we should, withdraw from. And I ask, when has it been that two people couldn't actually have different viewpoints and yet love each other and, come to an agreement? I was saying yesterday to a group, what if I'm red and you're blue and we can make purple together? Instead of going, oh, no, I'm red and you're blue, and because you're blue, I cannot understand you. Don't talk to me, go to your corner. And we're separating each other just because we defend
what is
a
the
different
most
kind of truth.
Interesting, Alex? That a lot of the ruckus and the issues in humanity are because, people don't want, I forgot how you call it because I don't have it in my consciousness, between blacks and whites and how is all this movement about Black Lives Matter, which every life does matter and everything, but racism, right? Racism, and as we are defending that not to happen in humanity, we're dividing ourselves more by going into blue and red.
Exactly.
So we're creating another layer of racism, the racism against the soul.
Yeah, and especially, I'm always saying that isms are very, very, it's a very dangerous ground to walk on.
I love that.
Isms are very dangerous because then you go to the edge of something, and we know that edges are dangerous unless you have a hang glider or you're going to practice bungee jumping. But, if you go to an extreme, these are extremes, like you against me. And then there's a lot of and I'm going to be very honest, but for example, Dr. Brené Brown, she's speaking in Braving the Wilderness. She speaks about BS,
we can say it. It's sovereign it's for adults.
It's perfect.
The shit.
Yeah, well, sometimes we are so entrenched and we are so obsessed with defending our viewpoint that even if we don't have enough information regarding a theme, we're going to throw BS at people and going like, well, in the end, it has to be either you're with me or you're against me. And she says, and I agree, that's the BS, most BS of all. It's like, is the queen of BS.
You are.
It's like either you're with me or against me. That's a very dangerous narrative because it's so untrue. It's like I can be with you, but not agree with you in everything. Here at home, we always say, okay, this is another subject. Well, we'll have to agree that we disagree, and I love you just as well. And let's either, come to terms with this or go deeper and speak more profoundly about this to see where we can agree in the disagreement, you know? And we